Okay, great stuff. So we're back online after a while. This is the FinTech game. What we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna just have a little bit of a discussion on um, what are the reasons behind the recent collapse in the Terra blockchain, um, and particularly why financially the collapse has happened in the first place, and a bit technically, or not too technical, but sort of a good rendition of why, what are the reasons behind this collapse. So we know that it's already passed about 3 weeks now since the collapse. We know that Terra has dropped considerably, and the reasons on the surface behind this collapse was the non-peggable stable coin. So the entire Terra network was based on and was the foundations of that network were pretty much based on the stable coin, which is the USDT peg, which is pretty much pegged to the US dollar. Now there are plenty of different stable coins. You have the USDT, you have the USDC, you have UST, and all sorts of different stable coins. Which essentially what a peg stable coin is, in essence, is a crypto-based, a cryptocurrency which is based, of which the value of that crypto is actually based on a real basket of goods, or in our case, it's pegged specifically to a real currency. In this case, the US dollar. So it's very attractive to have stable coins. Why is it very attractive? Well, for a very simple reason that it's essentially like possessing US dollars, which though function on the blockchain. So you have all the benefits of the blockchain. You don't have many gas fees because we're not talking about Ethereum. And you can exchange these as much as you want, and you can transfer them as much as you want. They're always gonna potentially they will not drop in value, supposedly, and so they will be pegged to a specific currency. You'll be fine. You can drop the money in there, and that's essentially like having dollars. And then you can, if you want to get rid of them, you just sell them back to the markets. You just swap them to other currencies, and you'll be fine. So that's why stable coins are actually something that, generally speaking, are things that people will look into. And personally, I sort of had a look into it. Was not really involved into this, but I was interested in how they worked. And the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at a thing called Terra, where essentially the potentials behind the protocols, some of the protocols that are based on the Terra blockchain, which are really interesting. One of them was actually this one, which is the Anchor protocol. So in order to really understand what happened with the Terra blockchain and why it dropped completely, Terra Luna protocol essentially dropped considerably, we really need to understand how the pegging works for this currency. So how was the UST pegged to the dollar? How does it work? Well, basically, the entire framework on which the Terra blockchain works is pretty much backed by huge reserves that were most of them were hosted on the Anchor protocol, and the Anchor protocol was essentially gaining resources and reserves by investors that were believing in the project, which was considerably interesting. And the reason why people were believing in the project is because they were promising it, because it was a fixed APY protocol. It was promising, based on a stable coin, they were promising a sort of like a 20% fixed rate per annum, which is very good. Now it's not impressive, not as many as other bullock protocols, is the way that I call them, like Titano or Libero Financial, which promise you like 1,000% APY, but that's on the tokens, which are not collateralized by pegged stable coins. In this case, everything is UST, which is pegged to the US dollar, and which is by counterpart essentially backed by collateral which exists in the reserves. So there are investors that are dropped their collateral. This collateral is made of what? Well, it's made of Luna. What is Luna? Luna is another protocol which lives on the Terra blockchain, and it's also a self well, let's call it self, but actually it's another APY protocol which does produce asset, and it increases in value and it gives you tokens. And the backed assets behind this protocol were nonetheless not just not too long ago, actually, the company that was behind the entire infrastructure, which is LSG, essentially backed up all the reserves with what? With bitcoins. And once that happened, they opened a few doors. On the one hand, they said, yeah, well, you know, we're all the reserves that we have in this protocol, we're using bitcoins. Why we're using bitcoins? Because we know it's gonna go up. It's the safest crypto. It's safer than Ethereum, and lots of investors are doing it, and we're at war, and people are investing in Bitcoin, so that's gonna be fine. So we're gonna invest in it. The problem with that, with bitcoins, the problem with the entire infrastructure, actually, there are problems with bitcoins, but I'm not going to talk about the problems with Bitcoin now. The reason why the entire infrastructure here collapsed is because apparently, or supposedly, the main reason behind this collapse was that there has been, like many other cases, there was a panic selling by people. So the pegged value of the USDT currency, which is what's behind everything on the Terra blockchain, pretty much all the Anchor protocol as well, started collapsing a little bit, just a little bit. It dropped. Say it should be one US Tether equal to $1 US dollar. But what happens if it goes down to 0.98? That's a lot, because all of the infrastructure is now dropping by 2%. People are starting not to believe anymore into that, and what's happening is people start selling. The more people start selling, but what are they going to sell? They're going to sell USD? No, they're not going to sell USD. They're going to sell USD, of course, as well. But mainly, as they sell USD, the value of the Luna reserves start dropping, because there's no reserves anymore. There's no more investors. People are pulling out. As the people pulling out, the Luna infrastructure starts dropping. The price of Luna, the staking protocol of Luna, does drop in value. People start taking out their assets, and the infrastructure itself, like what happens in Anchor protocol, which also has their own reserves, which are backed by Luna, starts dropping as well. So it's a waterfall effect. And the main reason behind this collapse was because the entire infrastructure in Luna started also being affected by the price of Bitcoin. Because the company which holds the main reserves, upon which the entire infrastructure works, upon which essentially give liquidity to the infrastructure that gives the right pegging for their stable coin, because those reserves started dropping, started being eaten by investors which were pulling out. And as someone starts to short, for example, Luna, the holder of the research, which is in this case LSG, if I'm not mistaken, had to sell their assets to pay back for contrasting the lose in value for the pegged stablecoin. So the more it drops, the more they have to sell. The more people start shorting, the more they have to sell their assets, until at some point they don't have anything to sell anymore. And everything that they're buying to provide liquidity, which is Luna, starts dropping. It doesn't have any more value, and everything goes to goes to zero, like it happened here. So the supposedly now behind what I said, so supposedly there is a real, because you cannot just start shorting. Nobody shorts just, retail investors do not just short the market. It's impossible. They don't have the assets to produce such a big jump in the stability of the prices in whichever protocol they are in, especially in a protocol like this, which is huge and massive. We're talking about billions in reserves, billions in US dollars of reserves. So what happened here actually was that supposedly a no-named investor, which some people think it was a Citadel, which is a hedge fund, some people said it was BlackRock, some people say that it was the guy that actually created the Terra protocol, which I don't really believe, but whoever it was, or the group of people that did this, which was the only way to do it actually, were large investors. And what they did is they essentially borrowed money from a large fund, which we're not going to name. It could be Citadel, it could be BlackRock, I don't care. So they borrow a large amount of money, and then they would have to pay back, right? So let's say it was 100 billion in US dollars, but they did it in Bitcoin. They actually got a loan in Bitcoin, which they had to pay back, right? So what happens is you have 100,000 Bitcoins, which is a lot of money. Yeah, we're talking about billions probably. Not entirely sure what it's like, 400 billions or something like that. But anyway, so you got this large amount of money, large amount of Bitcoins, and what they did is they swapped Bitcoin for USD, the stable coin. And as they did that, essentially, well, actually what they did is they shorted, they dropped, they bought the all the USD off the counter. And why did they wanted to do it off the counter, not from an exchange? Because if you do it off the counter, nobody knows about it. The price doesn't know about it. The price fluctuates because there are transactions happening in exchanges. So it's a free market where you're buying and selling the currency of exchange. In this case, everything was happening behind the curtains, off the counter. So I was, for example, if it was me that was doing it, I would just buy large amounts of Lunas, of USDs from investors, probably big investors. So they did that, they said, and they give back Bitcoins. Easy enough. I pay you Bitcoin, you give me USD. And I do it for the total amount of 25,000 Bitcoins off the counter. The price doesn't know. And once that happens, I then swap, I sell all of those Lunas, which have, say, a value of 100, and I start selling all of them to the market. So what happens there, as we know, as we short the market pretty much, you initiate a lot in chunks, orders to sell a total amount which is very, very large for say, even if it's just 10%. If it goes down by 10%, that's a lot. So that's what happened. So they shorted everything, and people, after seeing this move, started panicking, and they started panicking, and then I sold more, and then they start panicking again, and then the price drops again and again and again until it goes to zero. So why did I do that? Well, I lost money because as I start selling those Lunas, the Lunas drop in price. So if I sell 10 of my 100 Lunas, and it's a lot, let's say that 10 is a lot, 10 billions or whatever, 10 millions, I don't know, the price of Luna goes down. So why do I have to sell again? I'm shorting the market, the price is behaving and manipulating it, and I do it again, and I do it again and again, and the price still goes down. So all of those Bitcoins that I have exchanged for Lunas are now pretty much I'm making a loss, because yes, when I did the exchange, the swap, the price of the value was the same. Maybe Bitcoin then later goes up or goes down, and Luna goes up or goes down, or whatever. But when I start selling in chunks a large amount of Lunas, the price drops considerably every time, and the next time I sell the rest of my Lunas, the price goes down. So I'm making a loss, okay? But the price of Luna is going down, and it's going down miserably, because as I do it, people start panicking, as I said, and they start doing the same. So it's essentially just adding carbon to the fire. So as this happens, I'm losing money. I've got the other 75,000 bitcoins in my account, which I have borrowed. Remember, it was 100,000. I exchanged the 25,000 for Lunas, then I start selling, the price goes down, but I still have 75. What do I do with those 75? Before any of this happened, I do a large bet on Bitcoin, and I short the market. And I say, I'm going to place 75 billions, or 75,000 of Bitcoins on the Bitcoin market, because I want it to, I know it's going to go down. If that happens, I gain a profit. I short sell the market using Bitcoins. Nobody can say no to me, because it's a decentralized exchange. Nobody's going to give me any rules. It's decentralized. So you see what I mean? So what is the connection between Bitcoin and Luna? We're missing a link there. The thing about the infrastructure in Luna is, because if I already told you that the entire infrastructure is built upon the pegged USD. And what is the basis of this peg? Is based on the reserves. And what are the reserves? Bitcoins. If the price of Bitcoin drops down, the price of Luna goes down, because they are selling Bitcoin. If they are selling Bitcoin, the Bitcoin price goes down. So you see, it's a waterfall effect. The one is reassured by the stability of the other. But if I manipulate the market, because they're linked, I do something on the one, it goes reversed on the other. So as I was selling all those Lunas, the reserve owners, the people that are managing the blockchain, the infrastructure, started selling. The algorithm, actually, it's not just one person, it's just the algorithm. It works like that. It just pulls out the reserves and creates liquidity out of the assets that have been backed, Bitcoins. So we're selling Bitcoin, they are selling Bitcoin, the algorithm, in order to create liquidity in Luna, to maintain the peg. So you see the link between Luna, USD, peg, reserves, Bitcoin. And surely enough, because I shorted the Bitcoin market with the rest of my money that I had given with a loan, I'm making an incredible amount of profit. I'm short selling the market. I'm making a profit, a huge profit, because if Bitcoin goes down 10% like it happened, I'm making a lot of money, especially if I'm leveraged. So supposedly this is what happened. The entire Luna infrastructure was a sacrifice for a short sell on the Bitcoin market. And the person or the group of people that did this have probably not only repaid back the exchange or the hedge fund, was it Citadel or BlackRock or whatever it was, but they made a large amount of profit. And that's what happened to this infrastructure. And you can see it. There we go. That was the total value. The total value was priced at $28 billion. And in a matter of few hours, it goes down to 155. What is that? Minus 95%, I heard. And you see, anchor dominance means that, and I'm not sure if this is the backed assets dominate that are given by Anchor, but Anchor is the most important protocol under this network, and it's the one that actually creates the reserves and as attractive investors. Now, I'm not going to go delve too much into the Anchor protocol and how it works, but that's essentially what it is. And the collateral market is all based on Ethereums, it's all based on Bitcoins, it's all based on the Lunar protocols, which by counterpart are also backed by Bitcoin reserves. And I remember when I saw this the first time, and it was 20% APY with a pegged stablecoin. It's pretty good, right? So 20% is more than S&P 500. It definitely beats inflation twice. It was around here. So that was the total collateral, the total amount of reserves that were given to this protocol, which were essentially the engine behind the interest. So you have a collateral, and I can use the collateral to pay my investors, and at the same time I can create interest. But look at this, now it's nothing. So this is essentially what happened to Terra. What do we learn from this? We learn a few things. First of all, never trust something that people are always believing into. If you're trusting something blindly without understanding the mathematics behind it, you will most likely end up losing most money. We're talking about finance, but whatever it is in life, actually, that's what it is. If you don't understand what happens and how the infrastructure works, you'll most likely be losing money. So that's what's happening. And the next thing that we understand is also the fact that an infrastructure like Terra, which is based on other cryptocurrencies which are not stable. So if I create a stable coin and I say this is stable, why is it stable? Because it's backed by reserves that are made of X, Y, and Z. But if X, Y, and Z are not stable, and they are essentially, the entire infrastructure is speculating, say on Ethereum or Bitcoin, because that also Ethereum was involved in this, okay? It was not just Bitcoin. But by large amounts, Bitcoin was the most prevalent asset in the reserves. But if you think about it, if the entire infrastructure that makes the stability of it is actually based on non-stable assets, you're going to end up in ruins. And that's essentially the same thing that financially happened in 2008, where you had large amounts of investing done in high yield junk bonds. Junk bonds are made of real estate, are made of anything, are made of CMOs, collateral debt obligations and such. So where essentially the backed up reserve on top of those bonds, what's generating the interest, is junk, and that's why they're called junk bonds. And that's essentially the same exact thing that happened here. The market collapsed because the bonds, the interest that was generating the attractive, sexy protocol, was actually backed by unstable assets. But the difference between 2008 and something like that, obviously there's many differences, but financially the main difference is that 2008 was regulated, quote unquote, meaning there are rules and regulations. You cannot short the market like that and just make lots of profit. You cannot do it, and you cannot do it on leverage as well. But we're talking about off-the-counter, decentralized changes which are very volatile, very manipulative, or manipulated actually. So everything that happens really fast, and you can do it. There is no regulations behind it. You can short sell it, you can sell it, you can buy off the counter, you can sell it again. Nobody knows because it's decentralized. So that's one thing that people need to sort of get their heads around and really understand. Because once you do understand this, you'll know that you don't want to put your eggs in these baskets, or at least very few of them, and get ready to get them back out from the basket, because they will pretty much pretty easily crack. Okay, that's it for me.